and reviews on everything para from around the world. Find us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube and Instagram. Equilibrium Paranormal. Stay spooky.
Hello and welcome. Hi,
Hello.
Terry. I'm good, thank you. I'm good. You good?
I'm good. Yes, it's been a big day. It's been a busy day, so I'm kind of just whoosh, sit, hi.
I know. It's a little bit of a change up. We don't usually you're with Laura and usually I'm with Sarah.
Yes.
So even Sarah's in the chat room already. So hi, Sarah's on the Fables. We are doing a one-off, which we hope to do once a month, and it is going to be joining the interest of psychology and the paranormal. What makes it interesting is obviously I'm more of a believer, and I think you describe yourself, Terry, as skeptical believer.
Yes. I have I've seen a few things, but I don't believe everything I see. Let's put it that way.
It's always good. In fact, I heard something today that said the most important thing is to be a skeptic, is to be open-minded in terms of being proven wrong. So
Yes.
it's always good to have that kind of
I like to be the one proving people wrong, but yeah, if someone does it back to me.
I mean, whatevs. Tomato, right?
Now and again, I suppose. Law of averages.
Yeah. Which is something we're going to be talking about tonight as well. So
Yep.
Nice little.
Yeah, absolutely.
See what you did there. I like it. So we're going to be discussing psychology and the paranormal, also known as parapsychology, but we'll be looking from the perspective of forensic psychology, from abnormal psychology, biology, different kind of economic factors and, environment and stuff like that. So we're going to be looking at belief and also being able to believe what we see.
Yes.
Well, should we trust our own mind, our own brain, our own eyes even? So this is something that we're going to be
psychology would suggest no.
Well, yeah. It depends. Because the thing I love about psychology is it goes, studies have shown X, Y, and Z. However, it also has been proven
my psychology teacher used to drive me up the wall. Her phrase was always, every time we studied anything, afterwards she would go, so it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is exactly it. That's it. Psychology kind of turns up a bit late in the game and goes, yeah.
Could be.
Could be. I mean,
maybe a bit.
I would not bet my house on this, but I strongly argue.
There's a possibility.
Make your own minds up if you can trust them.
So it's a very nice field. Exams are always great.
It is. Oh. That was slightly triggering. I was taken unaware then. So we have looked at lots of different aspects, like I mentioned. We've also found some little videos and audios that we do not own the copyright to as well. So you're more than welcome to find these for yourself. It's just a little search that we've done. So you're more than welcome to find them in their original source. But we are using those just to kind of highlight some of the points that we're making in terms of the paranormal and how we interpret it. So where did you start your journey when you started looking into this?
I you know what? I started with corn circles. Way back when I had to do a English essay, I think like it was before GCSEs, so way back, and we had to do it on something and people were picking all these boring stuff and I was like, no, I'm going to do something unusual. I know, corn circles. And it was before the internet. We had to go to a library and take out a book and and look, and the Encyclopedia Britannica and find C, and so it was interesting to investigate that at that time, where it wasn't quite so easily attainable at your hands. And I did start to notice that people were very quick to want to believe that it was something paranormal, even though people had come forward to say, that they'd been doing it. People still wanted to believe that it was some alien force, and their need to believe was something that sort of triggered in me. Well, why are people so eager to believe that it was an external force when there's people right there in front of you saying, well, actually, no, it was me. I just got bored and, I decided to do a pattern in the corn. And it led from there. And I'm an artist as well. I draw and I paint. And one thing that I used to do when I was very much younger, when I couldn't think of what to draw and paint, is I would just draw a squiggle on the page and then see what I could see and then draw. And the psychology of that, I think that's called paranelia. Where your brain sees patterns. It's a thing that everybody's brain does. It likes to see patterns, and it's gone from there.
Okay.
Pareidolia. That's it. Pareidolia. That's the word I want.
I actually pronounce that as pareidolia.
Pareidolia, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always called it that. And when I heard you pronounce it, because even the way you say equilibrium is very like, oh, yeah, say it again.
It's my terrible.
Yeah. Oh. So when I hear you say it, I'm like, no, that must be the right way. I must be saying it wrong.
Now you've got me paranoid.
I think it is pareidolia, but I've always called it pareidolia. Yeah, but I've already called it pareidolia. But pareidolia is something that I got introduced into when I first started doing ghost hunting, really. And I say ghost hunting because I kind of separate my paranormal research into two categories: when I was ghost hunting and when I was doing paranormal research. So back in the days before I really took anything quite seriously, I had this really good photo and I loved it and I was showing it, and one of my team members was like, oh yeah, that's pareidolia. And I was like, well, what's that? And this one is, well, look, this is this, and and he showed me some cool pictures and introduced me to some of the stories that got into the media and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, I can see that now. So obviously on a learning journey. But in terms of like the psychology of things, my main focus was not so much in the paranormal psychology. I was really interested in forensic psychology. And from that, from looking at witness statements and how people interpret what they see and the biological responses under stress, all these things come in. And I was able to then link, we talk about schemas. Here's my schema. My brain was like, oh, this and this. Wow.
Together, yes.
Yeah. It's like apple, pen, pineapple pen. Yeah.
No, don't do that.
That's what my brain. That's what my brain did. So I found it quite fascinating to figure out what happens to our body when we're under certain stresses, and how that can impact us as a skeptic and as a believer, because we all come in with unconscious biases that we don't really have we give much credence to whilst we're investigating. It's hard to go in as a complete level field without your own, we're conditioned really with societal norms and things that we learn, our culture, they will play a part. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that's kind of how I got into it. So the first thing that I come across that I found was quite interesting, I thought I'd speak to you about, is something called Reconstructive Memory. And this is basically about personal interpretations. And this is again about what we are exposed to in our environment, our learned norms and our societal norms. And it's the way that we actually make sense of what we're interpreting or what's in front of us. So what I'm talking about this in terms of the paranormal is when we recall events.
Yes.
And not just that, but when we're in the moment and we're processing that event, we're not a recorder. We haven't got photographic memory as a default, you know.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
what we do is we receive that information and then we store it. But what we do is we kind of store the gist of it, like
We fill in the
what we
blanks, don't we?
yeah, and we just fill in the blanks. So
Yeah.
when it comes down to us recalling these moments, it's like, yeah, this and this happened. It's like, no, never. Like, it definitely did. And you'd be absolutely adamant, and it could be straight after that moment. So it's not
Yep.
so much, you know, coming away from that moment a week down the line and going, oh, I got this photo. When I got this photo, which is a very valid point, when you go back at evidence and you try and remember where you took it, but straight after, when that person's experienced it and then storytelling,
Yep.
it's as instant as that.
Yeah, I actually have on the wall of my children's rooms, I've put up be careful of the stories that you tell yourself, because the stories that you tell yourself then become your reality. And if you're, you know, for them it was, you know, if you're always telling yourself negative stories about yourself, you're going to become that, tell positive stories about yourself. But it's true of everything. It's true of your memories, it's true of your history. If you're always telling a negative story about yourself, then that's the memory you're going to have. And it's the same of experience that you have. If you always are repeating the same story, your brain just fills in those gaps, and whether you saw it or you didn't see it, or you said it or you didn't say it, or it was said or it wasn't said, there it is, it's in your memory, and your responses to it are as genuine as if it had actually happened.
That's exactly it.
That's for all experiences, whether they be paranormal or normal. And that's something that you've got to be very aware of when looking at people's experiences, when they're recounting their experiences, especially if things are paranormal. Because when you're in that situation, especially if you're not a paranormal investigator, if you're not in a big scary house in order to find, you know, the weird and creepy, you're just suddenly confronted by something terrifying, you can make it into a million things that it wasn't very, very quickly.
Yeah. I agree. I do agree with what you're saying there. And it's not just that, but when you think of first-hand account, second-hand account, third-hand account, what happens is when you do this storytelling, and there was a study that was done on this in terms of repeating stories. If something doesn't make sense to someone, they're more likely to leave that detail out. So there was a study done by Bartlett in 1933, and it was called War of the Ghosts. And he basically told this story, and it was a Native American folktale, and it involved ghosts and stuff like that. And he would tell one person, that person would tell the other person, and what they found, that everyone would tell their story in their own unique individual way, and they will take out what doesn't make sense to them or fits within their societal norms, and if they can make sense of it, they'll retell it in a way that makes sense to them. So what you're having is, when you, for example, when you look at these locations where you have investigation team after investigation team going in there, they're coming away, we're now developing a story of what started off something small, you know, in particular places like 30 East Drive, where you have the resident ghost there, and now you've added to the story, he was a monk and he was done, you know, there was a murder and he was executed down the road, it's linked to this house, and you know, and this is what you're getting is, you know, what doesn't make sense. Oh, well, it was a monk. Well, there's no monks near here, but there was a place where they used to hang him, so they must have hung him up there, and that's what's happened. Well, why? Yeah. why would that have happened? Well, there's well up there, and it runs under the house, so that's what's happened. It's like, well, why would he have been?
The human species is essentially, we are storytellers right from the beginning of time. When we put paint on walls, we are storytellers. But like you said at the beginning, we're not recorders. So when someone tells us a story, we just remember the pertinent facts, and all the rest we have to fill in, and we fill that in with stuff that we know. And
Yeah,
if you're a good storyteller, you fill it in with stuff that you know your listener will understand
that's
as
true.
well. So that also changes the way you tell a story between two people. You know, if you're talking to a
Yeah,
child, you're going to start telling them about, you know, murder and heads being cut off. When you're talking
no,
to an older person, you probably wouldn't talk about, you know, sexual things maybe, or, you know, drug use or whatever. That you would take certain aspects of that story out, and then they'd go on and tell that their way. And
yeah.
you'll never get the same story twice.
No, and this is what the psychology of, in particular, recalling memory of your own experiences and then sharing that story on forward, even when you're looking back at evidence and someone explaining how evidence occurred. You know, these things, it's unconsciously happening. So how can you stop it when you're not aware of it? We have schemas, which is connected to our reconstructive memory. The schemas is something that it's like a filing cabinet basically, and we have these files in our head that we process our information, we take away information because we can only store so much, which is the, you know, is the actual truth. We've only got so much, so we store schemas, and these schemas will hold information, and what it will say is, okay, this oven's hot, if you put your hand on it you're going to burn yourself, but you can cook dinner on it. So when you look at the oven, you know exactly what's going to happen, what to expect from it, and what you need to do to get your desired response from it. And that's what and it's also where we get our prejudice from, and it's also where we get our stereotyping from as well. So when we are coming from a biased perspective, believer or non-believer, skeptic or believer, that is going to be our schema at the haunted location. This place is not haunted. You know, this is why we said in the beginning, if you're going to be a skeptic, they always say, be always open to be proven wrong. That's always makes you a good skeptic. So, but again, we are governed by these schemas and what we expect as a response. Now, as someone that works with energy, as someone that works with manifestation and expectation, we always say that if we go into a location expecting something, then we are more than likely going to find it. Two reasons: because we manifest it ourselves energy wise, or you are going to find what you seek. It's just
Pareidolia.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can come as pareidolia, it can come as audio pareidolia, visual pareidolia, it could be self-fulfilling prophecy, suggestion theory, which we're going to be coming up to in a bit when we look at recalling evidence and going through evidence. So, you know, so it is what we think we are not going to be affected by. We are affected by it, even if we don't want to be.
This is what makes ghost hunting and trying to find paranormal evidence so difficult, because you've got your brain processing and filling in the gaps. You've got the pareidolia where you can see faces in things that are pretty normal, and if you're highly wired and you're looking for something, then that's what you're going to see. I know if you're a member of any of these Facebook groups that are ghost paranormal seekers, there's always reams and reams of photos of, oh, can you see there's this thing behind my son, you know, there's this image here, and you're looking at it and it's like, no, that's just the light shining through the door. And there's hundreds and hundreds, but people want to see something, and so they will see something. And then I think the biggest job of any paranormal investigators is to try and separate that from the real thing. and that's that really fine line that's really difficult to walk, because when you're a paranormal investigator, that's what you're looking for.
Yes, that is. A little acknowledgement. We're having some, it doesn't seem like I'm the only one with internet issues tonight. It seems like there's quite a few internet problems.
Going on,
you can see that. So if you lose audio, I am really sorry, guys. We're gonna power through because we're prepared fully for the show. But if we have to do a revisit, we definitely will. So it's fine. We're gonna keep on keeping on. Yeah. Good fun. So yeah, so that's a very good point. It is interesting, and I think as well, I think there is some people that don't put much credence in psychology either, and I think that kind of does it disservice, because even if you aren't a fan of psychology, human behaviour is something that we need to take into consideration when we're researching.
There are just some things you can't deny, whether you believe it's in psychology or not. I mean, even those internet sensations, whether you see a green dress or a gold dress, or the brainstorm, the Yanni and the whatever it was. I can't even remember what they were anymore. Green door and brainstorm, was it, or something?
Green needle, brainstorm, and I think it was like Laurel or Yano.
Yano,
yeah.
These were internet sensations that went round and was like, oh my god, yeah, but that's just psychology.
Yes,
that's
it
all
is.
it is. Walk into the supermarket, the way things are laid out is to do with psychology.
Yeah.
Everything is to do with psychology.
Yeah. Even down to the inverted ad that gets thrown in between shows is all about psychology. Absolutely. And it's all about
I did marketing for a long time, and even right down to the color of a person's eyes in an advert is to do with the psychology of marketing. It's all there for a reason. Nothing's by accident.
Fun tip, they say that if you wear yellow and have a bright background and that you look like you're doing something really fun in your dating profile, you're more likely to get swiped on than you are otherwise. So if you're out there dating, you wear yellow, show yourself outside, and doing an activity, you're more likely to be swiped on. And that is, again, psychology. So I know I've gone off point, but it's to make a point.
It's all psychology. Everything. Because, I mean, as individual as each one of us are, we're incredibly the same.
That's right. So we're gonna. One of the things that I find quite interesting with psychology and the paranormal is eyewitness statements. And I'm going to do a little bit of a video which I would become familiar with when I was doing my studying in psychology. Now, this particular video isn't paranormal, but it's to highlight how the brain can trick us, or even how we can be influenced quite significantly in our decision making, even especially when we're in high stressful situations. So you're gonna have to see all the things that are going on my computer, so I do apologize. I'm going to do a screen share and I'm going to play this for you. Nice and slow. That's how I like it. Okay.
We need to wind up your internet.
These are the holiday homes.
Oh no! Oh, trust there to be an advert.
Always.
Great fun. We might have to abort. We might have to abort.
Do you want me to? I've got the link. I've got the link here. Do you want me to do it on mine?
Yes, please, if that's okay.
Let me grab it. Get the right one.
Thank you.
No
Bear with us.
Which one is it? It's the
eyewitness
testimony, which is OU. That one. Let me just make sure I've got the right one, because you sent me through about 4 million. Scott Fraser, is that the one?
Yeah. Should be. Probably need to get to, I think it's 0.13.
0.13. Hang on, my internet's playing up now.
I think the internet everywhere has been a nightmare.
Oh, okay. So
chat in the chat room. Tell us your experience with psychology, and how you feel like it impacts the paranormal, and what are the things that you feel we need to keep it in mind when we research and we look for, or don't look for, whatever your flavor, paranormal activity.
All right, that's ready to go when you are.
I think that's the right one. Okay, add stream.
Can't make it play. Go. No.
The internet is not playing ball today. I actually think this is the wrong one.
Is this the wrong one?
It's the wrong one. Yeah.
Oh.
So
there we go. We're very professional here. Let's try this one.
Seamless. It is seamless. It is seamless. No one will ever know. No one will ever know.
Just talk amongst yourselves quickly. Oh my goodness, adverts. I think you know.
Yeah, see, we mentioned some adverts, and now they're all jumping on. But
did you say to go to 13?
Yes, 0.13, please. Thank you.
I don't know if this is the right one, is it? How reliable is eyewitness testimony?
That's probably it. Yep.
Okie dokie. Let's try sharing.
We do prepare this a full day in advance. There's no. We just do this for the bands. This is what it's for.
Right, yes.
We do prepare this. Oh. This is it.
This is it.
See,
yes.
I hope the sound is sharing.
It is.
Who do you reckon it was?
Right, that's what I'm looking. Number
Time
6.
for your culprit.
I reckon
you
number
said
1.
Any of these suspects, you were wrong. As is sometimes the case, no one in this lineup was the perp. For those that got it wrong, what happened? Did you just forget your glasses?
Okay, so that highlights for us. You're still sorry. That highlights the impact that, with the suggestion that the culprit was in that lineup, automatically your brain is trying to pick which one it is. And there's just by you seeing a lineup gives you the suggestion that someone in there is the one that did it. So you're automatically looking for the connection. And I found that really fascinating, because I found that the first time I did it, I picked someone and I was wrong. Of course I was wrong, because there was no one in there. But it did highlight the flaw in our cognitive processes when we look at what we've experienced. We went from seeing that straight away, straight to the lineup. So as if to illustrate the point, on instant recall, already we have flaws.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was proper. I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, let us know what you think in the chat. Another thing that I have spoken about before in terms of psychology is a collective false memory and false memory. And this is the process where we develop a memory that isn't true. A collective false memory is something that is held within a community or a group of people, and it is recording events, memorials, and this can have an impact on a folklore, superstition, a belief. So that's another thing that I feel is quite monumental in terms of the paranormal as well.
They've given it a new age name, and I'm trying desperately to think what they're now calling it. And the name has escaped me, but there is something, there's a big massive one because of the actor Sinbad.
Yeah.
Apparently, lots and lots and lots and lots of people remember him being in a movie that didn't happen. He was never in this movie. Shazam. Never happened, never existed, never happened. And there's lots of these sort of collective memories that people remember for some reason, and they never happened. And I'm not talking about like little things like you remember a line in Star Wars wrong or things like that. That's really easy, and that's just kind of word of mouth. But an entire movie that people can remember and describe to you that just never happened.
It was actually coined by a parapsychologist, someone who was interested in the paranormal, and they coined it because it's called the Mandela Effect.
Mandela Effect. Yes.
Yeah, and it was because they believe that they come across this whole group of people that believe that Nelson Mandela died when he was in prison, and that's not the case. He died at a late age, at his home. So it kind of, and there's loads of little ones, yes, like Luke, I am your father. When he never says that, he just says, I'm your father. And even like Hero Mutant Ninja Turtles isn't called that. And yeah, there's so much. And even down to, I did read somewhere, but I didn't find a lot of information that backed it up. But with the Twin Towers, a lot of people remember the Twin Towers being aired that one fell, and then straight within an hour or so, the second one fell. But there was evidence that showed that actually the second tower wasn't shown on the news until a day later.
Yes.
And only the first tower fell first. That's the only one that they showed. But a lot of people remember seeing it within hours of each other, and that was not the case. So things like that, again, reconstructive memory is when your brain takes this and this and sticks it together because it makes sense and it gels. So yeah. And also you've got confabulation, which is my new favorite word. And it's confabulation. It's honest lying. It's people that make up a lie with all them being all honest. They don't realize it's a lie, or they've not realized that they've created this lie. A lot of people, when you look at false collective memory, sometimes people perpetuate this theory or this memory when they feel like the source is legit, and it might not be a legit source. We find a lot of that in news sharing and stuff like that. That's how we get a lot of these news circulating. They're not checking the source, and they're not realizing the source is not,
passing on information that isn't verified or true. It's kind of a rabbit. It's a rabbit hole. You can fall down it quite easily. There's a lot. Because I mean, there was a massive case back in the early 80s, I believe, with a school teacher. They'd gone in and one child had this memory of being molested by the school teacher. And then they'd gone in and they'd interviewed all the other children, and the way that they'd interviewed them, suddenly all these children had these memories of being molested by the school teacher. And he got fired and vilified and arrested and all this, and his life was just ruined, and none of it was true. And it was just these group false memories. I don't want to say implanted, because that's not quite the right idea, but that were sort of just passed around amongst these children. And they were children, and they didn't know any better. They had no idea what they were doing. It was the early 80s. It wasn't the big media storm that there is about these things as there is now, and children were a lot more simple back then. So they didn't really know what they were saying and what they were suggesting, and that group memory, that false memory, then ruined this man's life, and it can be very, very dangerous. I mean, the flip side, if you want to call it a good side of that, is that then psychologists took that into account and are very, very, very careful when interviewing children and adults and everybody to not suggest answers. And it did set up an interview process, which is a lot more standardized and a lot less suggestive. But still, these things...
Yeah, and when you look at the paranormal, if you've got one person in a group that is recalling or saying this is what happened, and you are in amongst maybe a suggestive... For example, we know that if you've already got the ingrained belief, you're more likely to be drawn to a type of information. It's confirmation bias. It's there, So if you have got someone in the group that is giving a memory that they're saying happened, and you've got you are going to follow suit. You're going to go, yeah, and you're going to go, well, that must have happened because this did happen, so that must have happened. So, and you have a group collective memory of a haunting, and what happens then, and those people then go out and start talking about that to other people and stuff like that. So, it is.
And you've got the other flip side of that group where you've got the person who's like, hang on, I don't remember any of this happening, but everybody else does. There must be something wrong with me, so I'm just going to go along with it.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, it's psychology. It's just human. It's human psychology.
It's true. But Another thing that I kind of explored while we were looking at this was something called selective attention, or selective attention, and it basically says that we can only focus on one type of information at one time. We all know that there's a lot of stuff that goes on around us all of the time, that we're only picking up a certain amount, audio, visual. We're only picking up a small fraction of what is actually happening around us. So there's a lot of information that we're not taking in, but the information we are taking in can happen all at one time, like a cocktail party, for example. How do you know to listen to this person and not listen to this conversation? We'll still take in bits and pieces of what's being said around us, but we can focus on this one thing. So when you look at that, this is what we do when we do research. We're focusing on one focal point, our energy goes where attention kind of like is being focused at. So they looked at this as a project, as a kind of how much information aren't we taking in without us realizing. And there's been lots of experiments in this, hasn't there?
There has. My first experience of this particular thing, I'm a massive Douglas Adams fan. I've read all his books, massive fan. And he actually coined it before they started doing all these psychological tests. It's actually in one of the Hitchhiker's Guides to the Galaxy. And he called it the SEP, the somebody else's problem. And he explains it as being it's something that we can't see or don't see, or our brain doesn't let us see because we think that it's somebody else's problem. That's what SEP means, somebody else's problem. The brain just edits it out. It's like a blind spot. It relies on people's natural predisposition not to see anything they don't want to, weren't expecting, or can't explain. And that's there's lots of psychological terms for it, but I will always call it the somebody else's problem.
Yeah. And you've got this, when you go back to forensic psychology, you've got the Bystanders Effect, which is literally you had a woman that was murdered on a doorstep in broad daylight, and everyone could hear her screaming, but no one called the police and no one went to see to her. And it's because it was in the neighborhood during the day and they all thought that somebody else was doing it. Yeah. So no one did anything. And you've got as well conformity when you have, they did an experiment where sounded like someone had a really bad fall in another room, and you had a group of 3 people, and one of them was the blank that wasn't in the experiment. Someone else in the room got up to see if she was okay. He didn't either, or she didn't either, because no one else did. So they were like, okay, I'll just
normal. Yeah,
we just stay here then, shall we?
and anyone with children knows the flip side to that. If they fall and land on their face, if you're not watching them, they'll get up, brush it off, and not have a care in the world. If you look at them, suddenly it's the worst thing to ever happen to them.
Yes, true. So this is what we were looking at. So we thought we'd do a little bit of an experiment. We'll show you guys really and see how much you pick up on this experiment.
Let me get the work. Come on. There we go.
Attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
Make sure you're counting.
Yeah.
It matters.
How many passes did you count? The correct
15.
answer is 15.
Did you get 15, everybody?
But did you see the gorilla?
Who saw the gorilla?
This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Christopher
Yeah. My screen froze.
The screen froze.
Oh no! No one saw the gorilla.
Everyone did not see the gorilla. See, there you
No,
go. There's a
see?
problem, because when you are watching a basketball match, a gorilla walking through the court is most definitely somebody else's problem.
Yes. I think we need to play it again. I don't think they actually see it even at the end.
Let's do it
Did
again.
you see it?
Let's play it
We do it again.
Yeah, let's play it again.
Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
Pay attention. It's just unfortunate it doesn't work quite so well the second time round.
I know, right? The magic's gone.
Yeah. We've pulled back the curtain.
Da!
Did you see the gorilla this time?
Did you see the gorilla?
I love that experiment. I mean, it is one of my
But did you see the
favorites
gorilla?
psychology experiments. There's many that they've done, but that gorilla experiment is one of my favorites, most definitely.
But it highlights. So Laura asked the question, how do we bring psychology in on a paranormal investigation? And there it is. That is how we do it. You have to make sure that you're not inattention. It's called inattentional blindness. It's being blind to something that you aren't looking to see, and you're not expecting to see a gorilla walk through a basketball court or a netball court, so you're going to be blind to it. So it's, again, we go back to the beginning. If you're skeptical, if you're a believer, it's always good to be proven wrong. And if you go in with that, it's not mine, actually, Sarah, thank you. My phone went off. All right.
that was one of my friends on Facebook calling me to FaceTime, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Because they weren't paying attention and don't know that I'm doing this, so I will be having a go at them afterwards. Don't worry.
Friends, that doesn't sound like a friend. If they were friends, they'll be here. But we have one more as well, another example of inattentional blindness as well. We'd like to show you, if that's okay. And I just jumped that on. It is called Who Done It? I think it's called Test Your Awareness. That's it. Test Your Awareness.
Have you got it there, or do you want me to get it up?
Might be a good idea for you, just in case it doesn't load.
Where is it? That one and that one.
So there are lots of examples of the testing what you're paying attention to. The gorilla. So sometimes it's a white gorilla, sometimes it's a black gorilla. It's called. I've known it as a white gorilla test, but yeah, it's something. If you are interested and want to try some more,
I would be quite interested to see the difference that it makes if you're asking someone to count how many times the people in white pass the basketball. If a white gorilla comes through, whether you would notice it more. So, for example, if you asking them to count how many times the people in the black t-shirt counted it, would you notice a black gorilla through? I'd be quite intrigued by that.
Yeah, that is a very good point, actually.
But we can't do that with these people. We'll have to do that another time.
Yes.
Because now they know.
Yeah, don't tell anyone. It'll be our secret.
It's ruined once you know.
It'll be our secret.
Right.
Okay, add to screen.
It's frozen. Come on.
So many technical issues this evening, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh, there's no sound. Have you got sound?
No.
Hang on. Let's start it again. There we go.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Why, I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
But how did you know?
Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
This blew my mind when I watched it.
I know.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
But I was planting my petunias in the potting shed.
Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
It's amazing.
So yeah, so we go back to, if you're not looking for something, or if you're looking for something, if you're expecting something, you're going to get what you expect, really. And I think like it has been a bit of a sort of change of the bear. That's also that's Jess. Thank you. But yeah, so when you're not looking for something, then you know, but when you are looking for something, going back to pareidolia, you find it.
You find it. So when it comes to paranormal investigation, you have to be very very careful about what basket you put all your eggs in. Essentially, you have to understand. I mean, there's a lot of video evidence. There's a lot of photographic evidence. There is a lot of anecdotal evidence for all of these things. But I honestly don't think that it is around as much as people would like it to be. I do believe that it is in places and that it does exist, but I don't think that it is as prevalent as, you know, all these programs on TV would like you to believe that it is. You know, you go into a haunted house and something's going to move, and you're going to catch some voices on an EVP recorder. I don't think it's that easy. I think it takes a lot, and it's going to be that one photo, that one piece of evidence in a billion that is the real deal. And you need to be really vigilant that doesn't get lost in all the snow.
And there's two things that need to come away from topics like this and discussions like this. Firstly, paranormal psychology, parapsychology is a pseudoscience. There is no, it's as real as philosophy is. Philosophy is before science, you know. So but coming away from this, the real science is human study and studying of human behavior.
Yep.
So paranormal activity, recalling paranormal you know, things that have gone on, this has been around since the beginning of time. This has been going on through many cultures, cross culture, cross age, cross generations. This has been around longer than most of our traditions that we've got. So it has to be taken seriously, because firstly, if it's as prevalent as what we say it is, how often it happens, and it might just be that it's happening. If it's not, then we need to understand what's going on in human behavior for it to be recorded in the first place. So it's really important that we take psychology and parapsychology serious as we take any other human behavior serious. So, but an example of cross-cultural interpretation, something that I looked at was, you know, sleep paralysis. Now, the scientific basis of this is when we go into REM sleep, and the muscles in the body become paralyzed. And they say that this happens so that we don't act out our dreams. You know,
running when we're in our dreams, and swimming and
yeah, that's it. And they believe that we have the sleep paralysis because the mind wakes up before the body does, and what actually happens is dream imagery can then come into our reality, and it is very frightening. We can't move. It often happens when we're on our back. Study has shown it's more often to happen when you're on your back. But when you look at this as a cross-culture thing, we have this different kind of perspective of what it is, sleep paralysis. So we have in the old hag is thought to believe someone sitting on your chest and threatening you. In Japan, they have Kanashi Banshi, or Kanashi Bari, sorry. In St. Lucia, we have Kokoma, which is meant to be the unbaptized spirits of unbaptized children coming to, again, strangle you. In European Middle Ages, we have the incubus and succubus. And also, sleep paralysis is also linked to alien abductions as well. They say that this is what happens when you have alien abductions. And then what you then have is people then, I'm not saying this doesn't happen, I'm not dismissing this, I'm just saying, hashtag just saying, people then can go into have hypnotic regression, and what they argue is that during this, instead of unlocking repressed memories, which is what they say is going to happen, or it is, you know, alleged, it provides context which is based upon fantasy, imagination, prior knowledge, and expectation. And this is where false memories come in as well. And this is where our false memories do come from. This is our schemas, have prior knowledge, experience, media. This is where all these come into. So, yeah, it's interesting.
It's and it's vast as well, because I mean, again, like I said earlier, as a species, we are individuals, but we are all incredibly the same. So, yeah, with the sleep paralysis, it may be real. It may be a real thing. It may be external things coming to you and keeping you frozen while they do whatever they want to do. Or it could just as easily be the psychology, the physiology of your brain waking up while you're still in that dream state. My one caveat to that would be that why is every single person who has sleep paralysis having a nightmare?
Yeah. Well, it might not be so much. I think what their argument is it's not so much a nightmare. What it actually is dream imagery. So it might not necessarily be negative, but still terrifying, because
it
you're
is
awake.
It's a hag sat on your chest. It's incubuses and succubuses or incubi and succubi. There is never anyone that goes, oh, I had sleep paralysis and a unicorn came and farted rainbows on me. There's none of that.
I imagine. Like, I woke up and no clock was sitting on my chest. Get off me. No, don't. One can dream.
Then we'd all be after sleep paralysis then.
They'll be selling it. They'll be selling it in shops. Like, where do I pay? Where do I pay? But we've been talking about pareidolia. Now, pareidolia cannot be helped. It is a process in the brain where we seek familiar things and hear familiar things within sound and within imagery.
I've got some examples. This is one of my favourites. I'm going to hold it up to the camera. So this is just a couple of peppers.
Living its best life.
And that's just, it's not been done. Nothing's been done to them. They've just been cut in half. And then I do this with my kids all the time. If we're a bit bored, we look up in the sky and you see things in the clouds. How many of you have played that game? I play it with my children all the time, what you see in the clouds. And it is just automatic. You see it. I'm going to flash this up. What do you see when I put this up here? Looks like an eyeball. It's a drain. It's a soapy drain. It's just, it's how our brain operates. We make familiar things out of shapes. So when you come across something that is just actually muck and cleanliness on a really old grave, it's not a face, it's not a ghost, but your brain likes to think it's a face. Kind of looks like a foot with a face on it to me, but I'm weird. And there's so many of these things. I mean, I found this one, which I absolutely love, but it hasn't come out very well in the print. So the original photo looks like that. Now you can see that there's something in the background here. It's just a conglomeration of shapes. It's to do with the bush. There is actually nothing. When you zoom in, it looks like there's some ghostly figure leaping out of the bushes towards her. And then when you see the smaller one, you can see it really clearly. Because your brain goes, oh yeah, that's what that conglomeration of shadow and light is.
And we get it as well when we watch ghost programs and they go, oh, did you hear that? This is what we heard. And there's a subtitle on the TV and all of a sudden you can hear it, and you hear it in songs. And we actually have got an example. I don't know if I'm going to be able to attempt to play this one. I'm not sure if Terry has it, because I don't think I sent it to her. But it is one of the things that I like to look at. I found quite interesting in this was the when people would take songs and play them backwards and find the satanic meanings in it. Yeah. That was good fun. That was good fun. And I found one that was,
we could do that.
well, even today I was like, that is a message that I could back behind that one. Yeah. The thing was, when they first played it, there was this one particular one which I'm going to play. People have probably heard it before, and it's the Led Zeppelin song "Stairway to Heaven." And when they first played it, they obviously said that there was some satanic kind of link to it. So I knew to look for the word Satan. But other than that, nothing. But then when they put the subtitles on, it was like fluent English. The Queen's English was what it was.
You
so
can hear every word.
I was like, of course, that's what it said.
Oh, his name escapes me. I can picture his face perfectly. The comedian, Garlic Bread.
Yeah.
Cheesecake. Him. What's his name?
What's going on? It's like a weird version of charades. Peter Kay.
Yeah, Peter Kay. Him. He does a brilliant sketch of misheard lyrics. And when I worked on the radio in Spain, we did a thing with misheard lyrics as well. And there's some songs that I just now cannot hear properly.
No.
But the misheard lyrics are hilarious. But they only work when he tells you what you are supposed to be hearing.
Once you're there telling you this is what's being said, the subtitle was there, you're like, of course that's what they were saying. Why didn't I see that sooner? So I found a few. I'm going to try and play one now. Oh, share audio. Oh, got it. Oh, of course there's an ad. It's all right. I'm going to skip it.
Maybe we can get them to pay us for sponsorship.
This is it. No, that's not it. Oh, what is going on with us today? We are not having a good time.
We're not smooth. This is
right.
Technical City.
I don't know what's happening. Yeah, we've not had much. Anyway, I'm gonna play it. It is a song. Really loud. No, it's not fun. It's not fun. So yeah, I saw it earlier. I'm going to share it on the page. I'll share it on the page, the actual video that I watched. It was quite interesting. And it said something along the lines of Satan is here. He's sad Satan. He brings 666, and it was the chorus of that. Oh, it's so much fun. So we got through an hour of loads of technical issues, which was the best.
And we didn't kill anything, like
no
screen.
No, we spoke about some of the things that we wanted to talk about psychology and the paranormal, and what we find interesting. This might not have been your bag. This could have been something we told you right at the beginning, but thank you for staying with us and persevering, because it has been a journey. I feel like I've grown.
It's been epic.
Yeah. It's been a good time, guys. We are gonna look at doing this once a month. So it's just gonna be a casual chat about things that we find interesting with the paranormal and psychology. Hopefully you'd like to see it again. Let us know.
Yeah, give us some suggestions about anything that you'd like us to talk about as well.
For sure. And thank you so much for everyone that stuck with us, because it has been fun. Terry has got a show tomorrow with Laura Jane. They'll be talking about sirens and mermaids. No, sirens, which are mermaids, and fairies. And I'm assuming it'll be like folklore and stuff like that. So they're going to be talking about that tomorrow at 8:30 on the normal Thursday night show. And then I will be back next week with Sarah, and we're going to be talking about, I think, Civil League is where we're going with the next one. We do have a guest special, which is on Saturday. We're going to be talking to April, medium, also a paranormal researcher. She has worked on shows like Ghost Hunters and Holzer Files, which Hans Holzer has just been our running theme. It's been the best. So she's worked with Dave Schrader and those kind of amazing people. So we're going to be speaking to her on Saturday night, and that's to mark our 1-year birthday. So a little bit late, but we're going to be doing it. So thank you so much for everyone that's joined. Thank you that stuck with us. Please let us know what you think. If you're interested in the show, if you'd like to hear something different, but make sure you tune in tomorrow, and I'll see you Saturday. Bye, guys.
See you.
Bye.